Hello, everybody. We're here today, back again, talking about Strategy 10 of Shaun Attwood's UnMaking the Murderer. Strategy 10 is rig the jury. Now, there is some rather odd things that happen with the jury here in the first trial, and I would even say in the second trial. Now, obviously, it's somewhat accepted what happened, obviously, because it didn't seem to send up very many red flags at the time. But anyways, Shaun starts out talking about the Penny Burnson case, and it starts out with the jury selection there and how it goes, and he talks about how the judge is preparing them and he's talking to them, and then he asks them, do any of you know the defendant or his family or whatever, to which a couple people of them say yes. They raise their hand and say yes, they knew him, da da da. Then he asks if any of them know any of like law enforcement, or if they know any of the prosecutor or the prosecution, anybody like that. And many of them actually had ties to law enforcement, were relatives of members of law enforcement, and various things. And there was even one dude who was actually a neighbor of Vogel. He's actually 3 doors down and across the street from Vogel. So it's pretty strange. And the thing is that all these people were basically allowed because when asked, they said, yes, we know this person or that person or whatever. And they said, but we can be impartial. And so that was it. They were allowed to go through. Just, that's it. Oh yeah, no, we can be impartial. No problem. Yeah. So anyway, they go through jury selection, and they pick 14 people, 12 jurors with 2 alternates, and each side strikes 6 people. And I'll say with this trial, just the same as the jury selection with the Teresa Hallback trial, is that Kratz would claim that the defense had their chance to strike jurors. Okay, yeah, the defense had their chance to strike 6 jurors, Kratz, but the problem is the poisoning of the jury pool that happened. See, so many people were already decided that Stephen was guilty before they ever got there. So dismissing jurors is just bringing in more of the same thing. It's basically not alleviating the problem. Funny. I was having a discussion with somebody on Twitter named Leah recently about this, so thought I'd bring that up. So it's very almost pointless if the defense is striking jurors if they're only going to be replaced by more people that are going to be of the same mind. But anyways, moving on. So they select the jury there. They have, like I said, 12 jurors, 2 alternates. And then they basically, obviously through the trial, which you've already seen earlier in this book, they discredit any of the honest witnesses that were there to testify as to Stephen's alibi and what he was doing that day. The jury obviously completely believed law enforcement officers and everything they said, even though they were dishonest. Because a lot of them had ties to them or relationships with them, or dealt with them in the community and during whatever certain programs or this or that they interacted with them with. So there was these little bit of relationships with each other. So all the law enforcement was believed, even though they weren't exactly telling the truth. So and then on top of all of that, along with these, already relationships and that, then you got Vogel with his triggering the emotional reactions that he did. It's not insignificant. So you couple all that together, and that's how you end up getting this conviction of Stephen for something he didn't do. And we know that Vogel knew that it was Gregory Allen too. I mean, that's kind of even more of the rub here, isn't it? We know Vogel knew. He had Gregory's file in the Stephen Avery file. I mean, Gregory Allen's file in the Stephen Avery file. So that just makes it all the more painful or whatever. But anyways, so we move on to the post-conviction process where Stephen is trying to get a new trial. And he actually gets evidence tested, the fingernail scrapings that were under Penny Burnson's fingernails. And they get them tested, and it comes back that there is material, there's genetic material there, DNA material there, that could not have come from Penny or Stephen. Penny and Stephen had the same type of, the same alleles in their DNA structure, and they found a couple alleles that come from somebody else. Now, when this was brought into Judge Hazelwood's court, Mr. Fitzgerald at that time, because Vogel was no longer handling it, Mr. Fitzgerald argues that, oh, that could have come from anywhere. That could have been from anybody. It could have been from maybe or even her husband or whatever. And it's like, are you kidding me? She clawed somebody enough to actually like damage her fingernails, and you think that genetic material could have come from her husband? I mean, that's just ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. But anyways, so fine. Judge Hazelwood denies it. The appeals court denies it. Even though there's more discovery that there was some more inculpatory evidence that Vogel had hidden regarding, like, the one Avery who was a sheriff who could attest to the fact that Stephen had concrete dust all over his clothes. Other witnesses, another witness that was on the beach, or that could see what was happening on the beach and saw who was attacking Penny, and it wasn't Stephen Avery. Just various things like that. And still, Judge Hazelwood, with the fingernail scrapings and that scientific evidence that it was somebody besides Stephen, and along with this stuff that Vogel had hidden, Judge Hazelwood and the appeals court all decided, nope, no, this conviction would have still stood. Now keep in mind, there was no physical evidence against Stephen Avery in Penny Bernson case anyways. All there was Penny's, fingering of him, essentially. So the fact that these things weren't considered somewhat significant enough to give him another trial is just baffling. But okay, so we move on to now he basically gets denied that. He now ends up having, gets help from the Innocence Project. The Innocence Project starts helping him out. They send 2 students or whatever to start talking to Fitzgerald. Fitzgerald says, "Oh, well, you all the evidence has been tested. You might want to read the transcripts or whatever." So they do. They read them, and they found in there where he was talking about a pubic hair. There was a pubic hair that they had heard nothing about it being tested or whatever. Blah blah blah. He didn't respond to him. Then eventually he's coming up for re-election, and he was going to lose his re-election or whatever, I guess. And so he ends up sending it off to the crime lab finally. And this is because they had started this in like 2001. So finally in 2002 or whatever, he sends this off. It gets there. It takes a year for it to get tested or whatever. Then finally, I think this started in 2000, sorry. But then it takes a year to get tested. And then finally, after it gets tested, it takes another year. And they finally let Stephen out after a year. A year after it was tested and proven that he was not the person who did it. When it was already proven, but it took still a year after that testing for him to get out of the prison. So you see how slowly the wheels turn. But anyway, so he gets out. First thing he does when he gets out is he talks about how it's not Penny's fault. He doesn't seem to harbor any resentment towards her at all. He immediately recognizes that she was a victim just like he was. So I've always thought that was very telling. That was a very, that spoke to where Stephen's head was. In my mind, it has. Anyways, I know not everybody agrees with me, but anyways, but I think a lot of people may. So, and the thing is that Penny herself describes Stephen as being nothing but completely gracious. And she must have been feeling pretty horrible. And you get the feeling that he really put her mind at ease in certain ways where because he didn't just harbor so much resentment, he understood what was going on. I think she appreciated that he truly felt she was a victim like he was. And so I think that went a long way with her, and I'm glad. And like I said, I think it speaks volumes as to where Stephen's head was, even when he was getting out of prison after being in there for 18 years. He shouldn't have been there. The next part of this chapter, he goes on to talk about Juror 11. Juror 11 is the one that had to leave. He had to leave for a family emergency. Juror 11 was pretty much, you know, the person in the jury room there that believed that there was reasonable doubt. He did not feel that this was like a slam dunk, that he just didn't feel that the prosecution had really proved their case enough. And there was something like an original vote that went down where there was 7 of the people who wanted to vote not guilty or whatever, but then all this stuff goes down with Juror 11, and he has to leave because of a family emergency. And so Shaun talks about that, and then Shaun talks about the actual emergency itself, like what happened to his family member. And I'm going to go ahead and post the videos about this that Shaun made. I'm going to post those videos in the information below this video so that you can check them out. But it's highly suspicious. You know, it was basically a family member of his, I think his daughter or something, had left and was driving down this road. And it was in a rural area, a really pretty rural area. And she was behind this van, and it was pretty far ahead of her. And suddenly the van began to slam on its brakes and turned on its blinker. And she didn't really have enough time to react, I guess, and she rear-ended this van or whatever. Well, the van it didn't turn. I mean, it was a long time before she actually got there and actually hit it. And I guess this van didn't turn. So it's kind of strange why it would stop immediately and turn on a blinker, but then not turn. But, you know, moving on. The thing that she thought was odd is that the police were there in under 2 minutes. And it's in a rural area, and she hadn't called the police, and the people in the van hadn't called the police. And within 2 minutes, there was a cop car there. And whatever, and helping her and everything like that. So I'm going to post the videos, like I said, that Shaun made about this. I'm going to post them in the info below here, this video, so that you can check those out for yourself as well. But the whole thing is that this whole thing with Juror 11, I mean, and what went down with his family member and the fact that it got him off of the jury, I mean, it's just enough to make a person wonder even more than they already do. So anyway, that's it. That wraps it up for Strategy 10, Rig the Jury. And we'll see you guys later. Subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you.